Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. In the previous recording, we talked about the overview of the course for this term, and we focused on the material that we distributed last week, which was concerned with the history of television in South Africa, and also talked about issues of regulation. We also focused on the notions of representations, stereotypes, and hegemony that are all very important when coming to television production or the production of television content. This week, the focus is on the aesthetics and features of television. This is very, very important because each and every medium has its own set of unique characteristics, and television as a mass media is no exception. The codes which structure the language of television are much more like those of speech. So when you talk about television, we are talking about a media that is audio-visual, which means it's more conversational. It's the type of medium that involves the type of discourse that is more conversational, and the advantage about it is that it is a spoken discourse, but it's also consists of audio, and in some instances you can also have text on screen. So you can see that it has got much more strengths than other media. For example, you are able to see what is happening, that is visuals. You are able to hear, that is audio, that radio also have. But you are also able to read because you can type on screen, put those captions, so people can read. You can have graphics there, where people can also read. So text is also part and parcel of this particular process. Therefore, you cannot decode TV text as if you are particularly analyzing written text, for example, because of its nature as an audio-visual medium. It has its own set of characteristics and therefore has to be analyzed accordingly. Because what we are going to do during this course, as I said, we are also going to subject television content to scrutiny or some form of analysis. So it's only fair that we understand the aesthetics and the features involved when we're looking at television as a medium. So television is distinct medium, different from other medium in the sense that it is a medium of sight. We always refer to television as a medium of sight, where you can not only hear but also see what is happening. These are, of course, some of its strengths. It will have certain weaknesses there and there, but it has lots of strengths that other media simply don't have. The media in general are not antagonistic to each other. This means that the media are actually complementary to each other. The example that we have just alluded to, that other media may be written text where you are only able to read without having to see what is happening. Other media may only be audio, for example, radio, where you are just hearing what is happening and you rely on your own mental representation of what is happening. But with television, that is provided for. That's why in most cases we say that television is also an emotive media, because imagine an instance where you are reading about the murder. It's a different ball game altogether, as opposed to when you see, you are shown actually that murder taking place. So it's that emotional involvement, that emotive aspect of it, where you become too emotional because you can see. It's more like something that you are witnessing yourself. So that is very, very important to keep in mind. Importantly, television is a domestic medium or a household medium. When you talk about domestic, we mean that it's part of each and every household and is watched by millions of people across the world. And the most important thing is that as a household medium, television can be watched by the entire family. And when you watch as an entire family, viewing pleasure is enhanced Why do we say viewing pleasure is enhanced? Because as families, you are bringing different interpretations to the same phenomenon that you are watching or the same event that you are watching, and there is moments for discussion and different interpretations. So that enhances the viewing pleasure, and that becomes one of the major strengths of television. The other one is that it leaves vivid impression in our minds, which in turn leads to emotional involvement. Vivid impression because you are able to see. It's very easy, not easy to forget something that you have seen. You can so forget something that you have heard about, but when you see something, it's a vivid impression. It's very, very difficult to forget. So those are some of the advantages, and obviously these are the features or the characteristics of television, if you like. So also one of the characteristics is that it is a live medium. A live medium, we are implying that it's able to report live. Before, it was the concept of live reporting was unheard of, but it started with advancement in technology when the so-called ENG was introduced. ENG simply means electrical or electronic news gathering. That's what ENG means. Now, ENG enables reporters or journalists to capture the event and report live from the scene without first going back to the studio and repackage the material to broadcast later to the audience. They can report live. Before ENG was introduced, you could not get to see event as they evolve. So that is a major feature or characteristic of television. It's the nature of it being a live medium. Therefore, reporters are able to report from the scene. The Gulf War, we were able to see in the 1990s when the US stormed Iraq. We were able to see that because CNN was one of the first television channels to fly to Iraq and to capture what was happening. So as the war was being fought, we could see what was happening without hearing about it, that yesterday this is what happened, there was this bombardment, without really seeing. So we could see, and we end up getting glued to our screen because we were following this issue as it evolved. You are all following sometimes the commission, this commission that is investigating or looking at the issue of state capture, that is broadcast live, and you can follow event as they evolve there without having to rely on selective reporting, from reporters during news bulletins. So you can tune in and make your own interpretation because you are getting the entire story as it evolves. So that is an advantage, and it's one of the features of television. The funeral of Nelson Mandela or other important politicians, for example, broadcast live, and millions of people can watch as it evolves around the world. So that is an important feature. Another feature is that television is a transitory medium, and I'll explain what we mean by that. We mean that its content is not static. It's something that is evolving. It is evolving. It's not a static content. Like if you take a newspaper, for example, where you are having the content there, whether you put that newspaper and revisit it tomorrow, the content is there. But with television, although one can argue that you are able to record these days, the content and store it, but with television, the nature of television is that the story is reported and the story evolves. During the day, you keep on updating the story. You keep on hearing about the story. That's what we're talking about, So this is a very, very important also feature of television. Something is happening now, and then a few minutes later, there is an update, So that story is evolving, or television content is evolving. So it is not static. That is what we seek to capture here. And the other feature is its pervasiveness. It is so pervasive, Television is probably the most invading of all the media. Almost each and every household, as we have said, has a television set. It has simply become the way of life. So if something is there in your house, like most of the people when they get home, the first thing that they do when they try to relax, they will sit on whatever in their living rooms, and the first thing, they are on the remote. So that is the pervasiveness of television that we're talking about. It's there in your face, It's almost like unavoidable. So you are more likely to watch it on a daily basis, except if you are a really, really disciplined person. It dominates leisure time activities, and its messages are often more inescapable. It's there. And for some people, it's one of the most credible source of information for many, many people. When they want to hear about an issue, to see what happened, they rely on television news. Let's say they hear about something and say, okay, I'm going to watch the news, television news, because they regard it as the most credible source of news, because they are also able to see what is happening, unlike other media where you just hear and there is not much content and there is not much really to see there. So its pervasiveness is one of its characteristics, but also credibility. It is also the most trusted source of news because people tend to believe what they see. So you see what I mean when I say because of its the fact that is the medium of sight. People tend to believe what they can see. If they see something, they can be able to make their own judgment. They say, indeed, this is more or less what happened, and unlike just being told that this happened, but they could see it. So it enhances the credibility of the story that is being reported. So credibility, it's one of those features. When you are asked, for example, to talk about the features of television or the characteristics of television, you must be able to mention all this and say something about each and every one of these aspects. So there is also the feature that is unavoidable, the glitz and glamour. Glamour is one of those. The glamour in television is sometimes deceptive. We all know that. We are having the lights, the glitz and glamour that are associated with filming, those illuminating lights. They accentuate the vibrancy, of whatever that is being reported, So that becomes so powerful that even continue to present us these days, they become instant celebrities because they are under that the glamour. So they are accentuated. The event that is being reported itself, when it gets that illuminating lights and everything, so it becomes more accentuated than if it's something that is just happening out there or that you get to hear about. So glamour is part and parcel of television, and you'll hear more about this or see how really this comes to play when we are talking about the aesthetics of television, because aesthetics is more about appreciation or artistic appreciation of beauty, and the glamour of television plays a key role there when coming to appreciation of what we see on television. And then the other important characteristic is that television is addictive. If you need any evidence of this, you only need to look at the diehards of television programs. I don't know if any of you follow a particular program, they will not want to miss it. So they will always want to rush home or to rush to their device to watch that particular program at the moment when it first goes on air, so that they are the first to see it. So there is that kind of addiction. If you look at soap operas, for example, many people, are addicted to soap operas, and they wouldn't like to miss an episode of their favorite television program. So there is the addictive nature of that becomes part of the characteristics of television as we know it. Now, there is another aspect that is related to characteristics of television, or that is peculiar to television, that I alluded to earlier. The aesthetics. When you talk about aesthetics, we are talking about the artistic value of a program in the content of television. What is the artistic value? And because it's something that you are able to appreciate. I mean, if you're talking about the art, for example, because television itself is an art. I mean, it's produced, and we said that it's produced from a perspective of someone who's a producer of that particular content, just like any piece of art. So somebody must be able to appreciate that art. That's why we put so much value on the pictures that we put across. Are these enticing pictures that will be able to capture, the audience attention? Are these interesting pictures that we put across? The type of message, the way we structure the message. Are we introducing Are we using interesting language that is palatable, that is interesting to our viewers? So that is part of the aesthetic value that we put in any television production. That's why we are talking about television aesthetics. Earlier on, I was also talking about glamour, the way you edit so that something is magnificent. It's like a piece of art, So you put all those lights, the lighting, and also when you are editing, you have the potential also to use other editing techniques that enhances viewing pleasure or that enhances the artistic value. Those of you who are already experimenting with editing will know that there are various editing techniques that you can use, to tell the story differently. You also use the lights, you also use audio in a different manner to stress whatever that is being happening. So those are some of the aspects of aesthetics that are very important to know. So TV aesthetics tries to discover what is distinctive about the experience of TV. That's what I was talking about watching TV, So it examines, for example, the technological setup of TV, the feels of its images and sound that we talked about, the determining ways in which it is received and used, the distinctive nature of its text, how it creates and organizes meaning. So the way the message is produced, basically, like I said, including the language, the type of audio, the visuals, the lights, and everything that is used there. Those are the aesthetics of television. So television is sometimes referred to as a cool medium. And I will explain when we say the medium is cool. We simply implying that there is more participation, because when something is cool, and then there is lower intensity of information. So in television, and this is something that we will be talking a lot this term, both in this particular module, but also in the ancillary module, that particular module of A and J. We talk about less is more, which means basically you must write less, for example, and let the visuals tell the story. So there is lower intensity of information. And then other aspects of television, will enhances the value of the information that you are putting across. And we're talking about here as a cool medium. When the cool medium is there, we mean that there is more participation on part of the viewer. The viewer is sitting there, but is more actively involved. However, when it's hot, it means there is little participation. And when there is little participation, what happens? It means that there is way too much information. So the viewers has got little to do because the information is already there. For him, it's just to process that information. But here, it's more like more participation on the cool medium that we say television is all about. So another aesthetic feature of television is that there is an endless flow of content. Endless flow of content. That's why earlier on we were saying that the content is actually not static. It keeps on flowing, evolving. So that is an aesthetic nature, because this enhances the viewing pleasure. There is an inclination on part of the viewer now to stay tuned to whatever program, because things keep on evolving. And as you will see later on when we talk about segments, because information or television content is structured in certain segments. For example, if you are watching news, even the news bulletin itself will be in the form of segment, where, for example, we are having hard news, we are having light news like your entertainment stories, you are also having a segment that deals with economic news, we are having the segment that deals with weather, you are having sports segment. So it's segmented, So those are the aesthetic nature of news. It's not just news that is, or the television content that is thrown to you as the viewer. It's structured in a way that is pleasing, It's highly structured and is pleasing. That's why we're talking about this nature of arrangement as aesthetics. They enhance the viewing pleasure. Like I've already mentioned, the segmentation. The issues of scheduled TV consist of an ordering of time and hierarchization of material referred to as schedules. So we are scheduling content on television. Like, for example, we will schedule this type of content in the morning, this type will be scheduled in the day, because it's targeting different audiences. And this one will be targeting evening audience, the so-called prime time. It's called prime time. The evening time is called prime time because it's when everybody is back home. And television being a household media, it means now there will be lots of viewers. Now there are certain programs that will then target the prime time or the prime slot on television. That's why we talk about scheduling in television. You wouldn't just take a program that is supposed to be broadcast during the day and put it on the prime time slot, and vice versa, because you are going to lose your audience or you are going to miss your audience. So the other aspect is that of televisuality, which is nothing else than to refer to the manner in which the style, the content, basically in which the content is produced. Because you may be using that particular style, you may be using certain visual and enhancing them through different camera work, different camera movement, for example, camera lenses, different angles, the variation of focus to give it a distinct look and feel. So that becomes televisuality itself, because only audiovisual medium can do that, and television has been very, very key to that, to that type of content which was referred to as televisuality. So that's what we are talking about here when we talk about televisuality, that the television screen itself, it provides a distinctive visual aesthetic. The screen itself, the way it is, you are looking at this magnificent box, that screen that brings fascinating visuals with all the glamour and the glitz. So that becomes the televisuality of television content. Those are some of the things that you know already, but that you have to think about a little bit deeper so that you are able to appreciate. So, ladies and gentlemen, this in a nutshell are the features and the aesthetics of television that are very, very important. You may be asked a question in an exam to say that please discuss television aesthetics and television content. Television aesthetics and television features. And there you have it. If you just touch on all these things, and then, discussing it in your own word, you'll have a very, very good marks. So this is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. We will continue recording other sessions and engage from time to time, if time and technology permit, on Blackboard Collaborate or on other multimedia platforms. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and all the best. Bye for now.